pediatric neurology has quite an interesting background. There are a group of reflexes that actually are going to turn on the human nervous system. But the wiring for us, all beings, actually starts with another entity called central pattern generators, which actually precede reflexes. Now, I'm going to explain all these terms. A central pattern generator, or it's also called a neuro oscillator, this is like our hardwire. So the best way that I can explain this is to give you an example. When you come into this world, if I were to hold up a new little baby, I would put their foot on top of a hard surface, and we would actually see them step up. Now, they've never practiced actually walking around on top of planet Earth, but the reflexive motor pattern is already inside of our neurology. But here's the twist. If I were to move my hands away from that precious little baby, what would happen? Well, they'd fall down in gravity because their nervous system has not connected into how to communicate with gravity. So there's many steps that actually wire us up. And this is what I would like to focus on today, is to understand this background. So the central pattern generators are actually the hardwired patterns that are in human physiology that actually generate what is known as a reflex. And a reflex means that there is no sensory motor component. In fact, the reflexes are what's going to allow the nervous system to actually then be able to have a sensory motor component. So let's look at these reflexes. Starting right around the beginning of conception and as that baby comes together, we have the first reflexes known as the withdrawal reflexes. These reflexes are actually priming the nervous system for what's going to turn on, called the neuro reflex, at around 9 weeks of pregnancy. So the withdrawal reflex actually creates a pull-away motion from the baby inside of your womb. So any stimulus that comes to this baby, the baby's actually going to move away from. Now that's really important because this is a priming component to the nervous system. We have to know how to pull away from something in order to protect ourselves. So all reflexes lay something down in the neurology and then they grow up. So you still have your withdrawal reflexes today, and they're actually known as crossed extensor reflexes. So for example, if I'm cooking and I have a couple of pots on the stove, if one of my arms skims against a hot pot, it's going to burn. Now, I certainly don't stand there and go, wow, my flesh is burning. No, I quickly recoil my arm away because there is a threat, there is pain, there's noxious stimuli, and I have to protect myself. Well, that system is actually turning on the first 8 weeks of pregnancy. So it's important to understand the timing of what's going on in the life that's growing inside. Now, there is a transition. Around the 9th week is when the reflexes known as the primitive reflexes are going to kick in. And my favorite of all reflexes is the neuro reflex. So I'm going to highlight that one for you because it has a lot to do with ADD, ADHD, any of us that struggle with ability to pay attention. So very quickly, it activates 3 things in the neurology. Arousal. Is your baby waking up around 2.5 to 3 hours as a newborn? You need glucose in the brain, and glucose is only going to last for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So the baby then will startle itself and be able to wake up for the next feeding. Now, arousal is actually going to mature up to attention and eventually up to perception. So if this reflex doesn't inhibit in time, this is where we get either an excitability to what we're going to pay attention to, or that we're actually not able to pay attention to, which would be an under-aroused state. Now, it actually turns on 2 other things in the nervous system. One is the balance between oxygen and carbon monoxide. And the third thing is actually your sympathetic nervous system. And I think we all know what that means. That's your fight or flight response. So this is where we're going to stop for today, but make sure you pick back up because that's where we're going to launch from, understanding the sympathetic nervous system.